I'm Ben C.,
I'm Dr. V, the medical
medical
legal
legal
guys.
guys.
Today, we're going to be giving an update on the Depo-Provera litigation and how we're prosecuting these claims. So, Ben, do you want to give an update on the multi-district litigation and what we're doing with that?
The multi-district litigation has been compiled and transferred and created the MDL in Florida, Pensacola, Florida. As of a few days ago, there were just over 1,500, possibly by now 1,600 cases filed in the MDL. And we have several dozen filed of those. So that's the MDL. And Greg, maybe we should talk a little bit about the other filings. There are filings across the country, California, Washington State, about to be in Wisconsin, filings in Utah and elsewhere that either have been filed or will be filed shortly, cases filed in Connecticut, cases filed in New York. But the largest number of cases are filed in the MDL.
Yeah, so each case that comes in, we are looking from the get-go where we believe that case should be filed. And where we file the case is where we believe our client will have strongest venue.
There's a lot of thought that goes into where to file a case, how to file a case, the language in the case, the language in the complaint, which is what the original filing, the lawsuit is, a complaint. So all of these things, including the venue means the place, right? Where to file a case, whether it's state court, whether it's federal court, all of those things go into the strategy and the basis of, well, what do we file? Where do we file it? And when do we file it? The thing is that people ask me, well, how do you practice all over the country? How do you have cases filed in every state, which we do? The answer is that we always have a local lawyer who is licensed with a good background in whichever state we are filing. That local lawyer will get the lawsuit on file and we'll do a procedure called a PROHAC. That just means PROHAC vice means essentially that we're allowed to practice in that state for that case for the period of that the PROHAC is existing.
So we are evaluating those cases as they come in to understand, well, is this case, should it be filed in the multi-district litigation or in state court? And as we get into this, we feel very strongly about this litigation because women are continuing to get these injections for birth control. It's like the doctors have no clue, and these are serious injuries. What's your thoughts on this? 2025, we're seeing women having craniotomies that are just stopping the medication after diagnosis.
So first, explanation of a craniotomy. That is simply sometimes called a resection, okay? A resection, in this case, a resection where actual saw opens up the skull, right? And of course, behind the skull there, that's the brain. A meningioma is a type of brain tumor, and it is the type of brain tumor that is caused by Depo-Provera. Back in March of last year, 2024, getting close to the end of 2025 now, March of 2024, the British Medical Journal published an article. The lead author was Dr. Rowland, several other articles, really smart people writing that, researchers, doctors writing that study. In that study, there were over 100,000 women who were studied. And what the researchers were doing is making a determination as to whether or not there was an association between Depo-Provera and the creation of a meningioma, right? The development of a meningioma. Meningioma is a very, very serious condition, usually necessitating a craniotomy or an open surgery through the skull into the brain to take that meningioma out. And these meningiomas can be very serious because they're in the brain, in and around the brain. Second reason is they grow and they can grow fast. They can be existent for a long time before anybody starts having the symptoms that would lead them to then have a physician look at it and see if there was something there. And then they find the meningioma. And because it's a time factor, the longer you go, the longer that tumor's there. And especially if you're continuing to receive Depo-Provera, then it's going to continue to grow usually. So it's a very important, very tragic condition, actually. Part of the tragedy is that, and as shown by the medical journal we were talking about, British Medical Journal, studied all these women, compared the women who had taken Depo-Provera, had been injected with Depo-Provera, versus women who did not ever receive injections of Depo-Provera. Okay. Those are called cohorts. One cohort, women that had the injections, another cohort, women without the injections. What that study found, what those researchers found, is that there is almost a 6 times relative risk, 5.6 times relative risk of meningioma in women who were injected with Depo-Provera versus women who were not. That's almost a 600% greater probability of development of a meningioma in the population of people who have had these injections as opposed to those who have not. That's a huge, huge relative risk. But these women did not know, because there was no reason for them to know, that this Depo-Provera had this huge, huge factor of risk factor. And so that's where we are. And after the study came out, then we started gathering these cases. And when I say gather them, we treat every case separately. But we were getting these cases, and we are getting these cases, and we will hopefully be able to do some good things for our clients who have this tragic development of a meningioma because they took or were injected with Depo-Provera.
Studies have been available for the past couple decades. So this problem, there have been safety signals that have been flashing, and now it's like a constant light in your face, okay? But there have been safety signals on Depo-Provera, synthetic progesterones, that have identified this association in the past.
What you're talking about when you talk about safety signals, that's like a red flag, right? And the distinction I would make, Dr. V, is the distinction between the safety signal that the company knew. Pfizer is the innovator of the drug. So let's say Pfizer developed this drug, and we know that there were safety signals, red flags, that would have led any reasonable company to understand and know there was this association. You don't have, this is my belief, that if you have a drug that is 6 times more likely to cause a disease or condition, a serious condition like this, you're just not going to not have safety signals. Needless to say, there's a problem there. And the problem is, how was it that for all these years, this product was put on the market in 1992 for birth control? So what is that? 33 years? 33 years it took, or 32 years it took, for this large universal study to come out.
And that study was not sponsored by Pfizer.
Right.
I mean, a reasonable pharmaceutical company, if there is a known association between synthetic progestins, you're talking 2009.
What happened in 2009?
2009, other synthetic progestins, they found dose-dependent association.
And a dose-dependent association means as your dosage either increases as time goes on or stays the same, then you have a greater risk of the development of these meningiomas in this case. That's the dose dependency, right? Higher the dose, or the longer the dosage was taken, the higher the number, higher percentage of incidence of meningioma or whatever the disease or condition is for that particular drug. That's dose dependency.
So, every case that comes in, I'm reviewing the medical records. And so I'm seeing a whole lot of problems, such as a meningioma diagnosed in 2024. It's a difficult surgery, and the neurosurgeon, because of the dangers of the location and the surgery, they want to follow this conservatively to ensure that if they were to expose that woman to a dangerous brain surgery because of the size, location of that tumor, they're observing over time, but they're not stopping the Depo-Provera because the company has not sent out a Dear Doctor letter. There's not a black box warning. So doctors have not been managing these Depo-Provera dependent tumors. As obviously you stop the drug, right? The tumors are just growing because they're not stopping the medication.
Right.
And it is, I'm a brain injury doctor. Okay. So I took care of people in rehab hospitals who've had strokes, penetrating brain injury, tumors, cancer of the brain. So, the complications from meningiomas, especially the ones that are unresectable, those are not pleasant deaths. Watching a person who has a tumor that can't be resected causing progressive neurologic deficits, that's not a good death.
We have had clients who had been diagnosed with a meningioma, and there have been instances where, nonetheless, the doctors continue to inject Depo-Provera. Diagnosed brain tumor, still injecting Depo-Provera. And because there is a dose-dependent relationship between the dose and the event, meningioma, it is very bad a situation when you've got that. In some instances, the physician will say, well, I didn't know. The company didn't tell me. They didn't warn me. We haven't talked about this yet, Dr. V, but if a company believes that there is a problem with their drug or their medical device, they can send, without any connection with the FDA, without any request, they can send what's called a Dear Doctor letter. They could have sent Dear Doctor letters through these years to the physicians who were injecting these. They know who the injectors are because they've got that in their records. They know who they're selling this drug to. And it's unique to this particular drug that the patients aren't getting it. They're not going to the pharmacy and picking this up, and it's coming from the doctors, and the sales reps are getting the Depo-Provera to the doctors who then inject it. Guess where it's coming from? It's coming from the manufacturers. Those manufacturers, in this case, Pfizer, could have sent these Dear Doctor letters out and told the doctors, if you inject this, you have a greater probability of your patient developing meningioma than if you don't. I think we've got a tragic case where the client developed something like 12 meningiomas over the years. She was continuing to get this Depo-Provera. Another thing, not meaning to monopolize this, but now that I'm thinking about it, it takes a while sometimes for these to develop, and the patient doesn't know it, and their doctor doesn't know it. And let's say that, meningioma can cause headaches. Well, a lot of things can cause headaches, right? So you got situations where a patient goes in with a headache. One of the things that the doctor's not going to do, probably, is immediately send that person in for a brain scan of some sort, right? And so it takes a while to finally get one of these brain scans. And then the patient is in a situation where, my gosh, they probably developed this brain tumor months or years before, but they had no reason, and the doctor had no reason to go send them in for a brain scan because of the symptomology. And every case is different. It's fraught with problems because of the insidious nature of the disease and the fact that the doctors were not told by the company that, number one, there's an increased risk in the development of meningioma if you have been given Depo-Provera, and number two, the recurrence. And you got to stop the injections if your patient develops a meningioma.
This is a different type of tumor, though, this Depo-Provera push tumor that, looking at
Did you say call it a push tumor?
well, it pushes it to grow. Progestin, they're progestin receptors.
What's progestin?
Progestin is a hormone that can prevent ovulation, and
Ovulation being what?
the egg being released by the ovaries, which then goes through the fallopian tubes, and then there's fertilization. But progestins push these tumors. So we're seeing some unusual tumor behavior that hasn't really been described yet. There's normal CT scans a year before. 1 year later, 3-centimeter meningioma, that's growing fast.
Yeah, and if you don't have a meningioma a year before that, and you have
a 3-centimeter one,
you're almost the lucky one because you got it within a year. It hasn't been over a year old.
it's all bad. Okay, there's no bright side of anything with this horror story. Okay, we are looking at state court filings right now. We recently filed a case in Washington. We're looking at Iowa. We're looking at Wisconsin. We're looking at a case in New Hampshire.
Pretty much everywhere.
And so we're looking at each case very carefully. And, these injuries are just bad news.